Hello, my name's Sangharuchi. This is the first video for the Dharma training course for Mitras. This is kind of like an orientation video, and I'd really appreciate it if you watch this, because I think it's got some quite important information about the course that would help me and everybody, I think. First of all, who am I? My name's Sangharuchi. I was ordained about 5-6 years ago into the Triratna Buddhist order, and I was given I was trained in 3 different ways, and the Dharma training course for Mitras was one of them. Probably the most thorough, I think, in some ways. And I'd like to pass that on. Basically, I'm here because of that. I live in a camper van. I live nomadically, and for me to run a group in person is a little bit challenging, but for me to do something online is easier and more flexible for me. And looking at the number of people who are interested in this, I think, well, I'm hoping it's going to be of use to people. Next, what is the Triratna Buddhist order and the Triratna Buddhist community? Truth, reality, or truth in Buddhism is an unbiased state of mind. It's not a set of words or formalities. You can't know it as a fact. Each culture needs a slightly different set of words or a slightly different set of forms to bring about that state of mind in the culture. And even more so, every person needs a different training and a different set of words and a different set of formalities and forms to bring that about in them. So Triratna is a system of practice that's developed for a modern global culture. It used to be called the Western Buddhist order because it was aimed at a Western culture, but it become pretty obvious that it very rapidly became a worldwide Buddhist school, largely because we live in a globalized world now. There's a lot of uniformity. There's still a variety, but there's cultures are becoming more intertwined, I think, in lots of different ways, and so it seems to apply to lots of different cultures. It was founded by a man called Sangharuchi, who was ordained in India, and he had the experience of knowing and studying in many different schools of Buddhism, and for quite a long period, he come back to the UK and saw that the Buddhist situation in the UK was fairly rudimentary, and decided to start a new school. What's particular about Triratna? There's all sorts of bits and bobs, but one is that it has an emphasis on community. I think probably because we don't do that very well in the West. We're quite fractious. Community and friendship is not really as we're not as knitted into a body of people as we have been in generations past. So there's an education on that, I'd say, or there's an opportunity for that depth and brotherhood, sisterhood. There's an emphasis on the arts because I think that's quite a powerful source of inspiration in terms of the number of images that we have in our lives. There's just far more images in our life now in the modern world than there ever has been in the whole of human history. Emphasis on transforming our work patterns. That's another one, and we probably just because we do that a lot, and it's an essential part of life, actually. In other Buddhist schools, people could relatively easily become monastic, and work wouldn't necessarily be a thing. Whereas uh, the modern culture is not really set up for a monk lay divide. It doesn't. Yeah, we're not set up for that, and so work's very important. And we have a lot of baggage around work as well, so a little bit of that being an emphasis is quite useful. And it's ecumenical, meaning that it draws from lots of Buddhist traditions, and it draws what is essential from them all, which again is something that historical traditions haven't been able to do because they haven't been aware of each other. A global culture and extremely good translation and communication means that we can view the entire gamut of Buddhist history and present doctrine and practices in a way that just wasn't possible before. Next thing is, what is it? What is the Dharma training course? So it's a year-long course that Mitras learn about, that Mitras use to learn about Buddhism and practice. There's also another further 4 years after that, but I'll be doing the first year, and we'll get through that and then see where we go. Mitra, being a Mitra is a sort of formal commitment, a bit like a baptism for Christians. You become a Mitra in the Triratna Buddhist community, which is like you have a little ceremony, and it's just you saying that you are a Buddhist, that you are practicing in this context, and that you following certain precepts. You're working with your mind and your ethics. Some Buddhist centres require people to be a Mitra to do the Dharma training course for Mitras. That's for a few reasons. Firstly, because it helps that you know that the people around you are committed. That's really important. But also, often resources are such that you're going to offer the resources most to those who are committed. If there are extra resources, and I'm glad to say in a lot of Buddhist centres there are, it's actually, a lot of people consider it preferable that you actually do the first year of the Mitra study course, the Dharma training course for Mitras. You do that before you're a Mitra, so that the act of becoming a Mitra is very, very well informed. And so you don't have to be a Mitra to do this course. And I wouldn't know anyway, even if you weren't. What are the aims of the Mitra study course? They are... What are the aims? Most obviously imbibing a system of practice. And imbibing a conceptual map that orientates you. So what you're presented in the course is not going to make you enlightened. But it can give you the framework within which to bring about a different state of mind, which may lead to a radical turning about in your state of mind. It's a little bit like right view or a conceptual map, or the system of practice is a little bit like scaffolding. So to build a building, a new building, something higher, you build the scaffolding around, and then using the scaffolding you build something within it, and then you take the scaffolding away. That's probably the best way I can describe it. So it's imbibing that framework, let's say, but the framework is not the thing that you're after. Internal transformation is the thing that you're after. Learning a language. So the ability to communicate deeply with anybody, I think, is predicated on having a language that can be deep. Yeah, you've got to be deep in yourself so that you can contact that, but you also need a mode of expression which can be that. And learning a system of practice does that. I mean, if you, like any specialized area, surgery, so like everybody in the surgical theatre knows the name of every single scalpel. There's probably 30, 40 different ones. Now, that's an exclusive language to them, so in some ways it's exclusive and it prevents them communicating with certain people, and that's the cost. But the advantage is that whilst they are in surgery, anybody can communicate to anybody else very quickly and efficiently and very accurately what it is they need or what it is they want or what's going on, because they've got a whole load of other words which they all understand the particular meaning. And in some way that's been one of the most useful things for me. Yeah. In fact, I think it probably has. Making deep connections with people, which come from the first two, I think. Keep meeting with people and talking about what's of meaning to you, investigating that, being honest, being a little bit dangerous. Depth of friendship. And the last one, I think, is, I mean, I'm sure there's more than this, but the last one is having confidence in all of the other three. Because to have those three is, it is useful, but to have confidence in them when the going gets tough, that is deeply, it's profound, I think, because when the going gets tough is when you need all of those things most. What happens in a study group? I'd say maybe 10%, 5% of groups, 10% of groups eat together, which, if you go into each other's houses, you might provide food. The word companion comes from French, and it means to break bread with. People you eat with, you trust, you relax with, you share with. I'd say about 30% of groups, they have some kind of ritual together. So that might be chanting the precepts, that might be doing mantra or a little puja, which is like a little celebratory ritual together. And that's that brings certain values into the room to express those, and particularly to express those with one voice. You sort of say them in tune, and it's a little bit like a theme tune to a TV series or something. You hear that theme tune at the start and at the end, and it's sort of it brings you into that space. I'd say 50-60% of groups meditate together. That does a couple of things. First of all, it enables you to work on your mind and to bring your mind into a more conducive state to interact fully. So you can sort of change your mind through meditation. But I think actually probably, the most important thing really is just that you're put in contact with your mind. So even if you can't change it to something that you think is actually more useful for you, a mind that's more capable of meeting your values, even if you can't do that, you are at least aware of what's going on for you, so that you can take that into account in the when you meet. I'd say 80% of groups tune in together. So that's where you go around and you each have, it might be timed, you might have a minute or 5 minutes or whatever, where you say what it is that's going on for you, both in the week that's led up to it, or really importantly, what's going on for you right now. What are you bringing to the situation? And that's not a discussion. You're left to do that. What does that do? It it gives people a context for your perspective. I think when you bring stuff to a group, when you have inspirations or doubts or questions or whatever it happens to be, that the people around you know a little more of where you're coming from. It helps them understand. It helps them respond more fully, um, which is very useful. Yeah. And of course, all groups study, and what that means is they read in the previous week, maybe 2, 3, sometimes 4 pages of A4, and there's one of these little booklets every single week, and you can also buy a great big book with the whole year's worth in. That's a PDF as well. You can put it on Kindle or whatever. You read that, you sort of digest it over the week, you reflect on it, and then you come with, well, there's some questions at the end of it. Some groups just go through those questions, or you come with your own questions, and sometimes it's more formal and you stick quite to the topic that's there. Other times it can be a little bit more meandering, and of course it goes from more you'd say formal, like doctrinal questions, to more personal reflections, and that's the sort of environment, really. Other aspects are, so the groups are small enough generally, so that the groups are like between 4 is probably the smallest that you can go, and probably 12 maybe is probably the highest. The groups are small enough so that if you're so that everybody gets the chance to speak, to contribute, and so that people who are quieter and maybe a little bit more withdrawn, it's kind of essential that they chip in, really. So there's a challenge there, and a benefit, and then also they're large enough so that the people who are more vocal and more dominant, maybe, they can't just run the show. They can't. They have to be quiet and listen. So again, there's a benefit and a challenge there. And of course, about that size, you can personally get to know everybody. The groups are in person generally, and that provides a high resolution. You've got a lot of channels coming at you when you're in person. You're physically in the same place. You can see them. You can hear them. It's a subtle environment to be in when you're in person with somebody. The groups are committed, and that means that it means a few things actually. First of all, it means that you can rely on the group. It will meet every week, and it will be there. And sometimes that's a bit of a pain in the bum because you don't always want to go, but it will always be there for you. But you kind of always need to be there for other people. The other thing is that when you don't want to go, or when you do want to go, there's always parts of ourselves that we are more inclined or less inclined to show. And a commitment means that really, unless you're ill, you just go. And that means that over a period of time, you get to see all the different facets of people, and you learn for yourself, actually, that all the different facets of you need to come into the fold. You can't just be you can't just have the good Buddhist part of you be seen. All the different energies of you need to come into contact with your practice. Yeah, in fact, those are the the bits that you probably don't want to be seen are actually the most important parts to come into contact with your practice and with the Dharma. Anything else? I don't think so. And the last thing is that they're facilitated, so that there's always an order member there, or at least someone who's got experience, knowledge of the principles and experience of the practices. Yeah. So I can't offer that. I can't offer us to eat together or for us to meditate together. That's not what I can offer here. But so what I am offering, what I'd like to do is I'd like to read out a section for you to listen to. And but obviously you can read it as well on a Kindle, or you can buy a book and you read it. One way or another, you imbibe the material. Next, in the comments I don't know exactly what format it's going to be in the fullness of time. At the moment, it'll probably be on YouTube. Might be a podcast, I'm not sure. But in the comments or by email, you send me your questions about that. I'd request for it to be relatively concise, please, because there may be a lot. I don't know, but keeping it pithy would be really good. And then in the next session, the first half of the next session, I try to respond to those questions as best I can. In the second half of that session, I then read the next block of text, and we just repeat like that. In the future, I hope to get a collaborator, which I think if I can get them local, or I can meet them, then we can, or if I meet with them over Zoom and try to respond, then there's a bit more of the conversational aspect, which I think is really, really important. You get multiple perspectives as well. The other thing that we could do is in future is get Zoom groups together. So if you want to take this deeper and you want to discuss the material, and you want a more personal forum to discuss the material, email me, let me know, and I'll try and, as soon as I've got 6 email addresses, something like that, I'll then ask you all if you want to join the Zoom group, and I'll just then you guys can meet, and that will give you a personal forum. That will give you the commitment. It will give you the conversational and the expressional and the communal aspect of it a little bit more. Or you might even be able to meet in person if there's enough people around you. So if you want to get involved, just email me. What I'm not offering, I don't want to offer an online text-based community. There's a few reasons for that. Chat is a low commitment environment, so it doesn't really give you a context to the person that you're interacting with. Text is a low resolution medium, so there's no facial expressions, they're not in front of you, there's no slight inflection of voice, it's low resolution, which doesn't lend itself to Dharma study. That it's public, a public chat is low accountability. So it's quite easy to be unethical or insensitive and not know that you've been either, or that what the consequence of that is. And lastly, it's a sort of high risk for misunderstandings and conflict. And from my point of view, those things really sap my energy. If I'm putting my juice into doing this, and actually a lot of, or some of the things that come out of that are misunderstandings or disagreements, or and then I either have to sort them out or not sort them out and just kind of get on with it. That takes my energy down, and I'd like to keep my energy up for this. And the other thing is that if you do get into those kind of discussions online, on text, in public, I think that that uses up an energy in you that I think would be better in a Zoom group or in some private forum, or whatever it happens, or in person, whatever it happens to be. So if you feel the need to connect, if you feel the need to express yourself or discuss something or debate something or even have a rant, whatever it is, don't blow it on a text comment. Save it up, and when you've got enough impetus, email me. Yeah, and I will personally reply, or I'll find you a forum that suits you, or I'll tell you where the nearest Buddhist centre is, or an in-person group or a Zoom group, like just whatever. Don't blow it on low fidelity interaction. Yeah, that's my request anyway. Well, I'm also not offering. I'm not offering a complete Buddhist perspective. Triratna is one facet of Buddhism. You've got Buddhism like this, and Triratna is tiny. Yeah, there's so many different schools, and I don't think anyone knows what the entirety of Buddhism is. I can't offer you that. The next thing is I'm going to try and offer you a Triratna perspective, but I can't. I'm not going to be able to do it. I'm going to try, but I'll fail. So whatever you take from this, don't think that that is definitive of Triratna. There are so many different characters and viewpoints and ways of practicing within Triratna that you're going to kind of half get me and half get a Triratna training. For you to understand more of the Triratna system of practice, you're going to need to meet in person lots of people from Triratna. You're going to need to read. You're going to there's a whole. This is a. I'm hoping this will be a good start. Yeah. What I'm also not offering is I'm not going to offer you my definitive position on anything. So you're not going to get to know me in this. I mean, obviously, I'm here, and you will take something of it, of me, from it. But in many ways, I'm going to try and edit myself out as much as possible, because you've come here. You don't want to learn Sangharuchiism. You want to learn Triratna Buddhism. And so there are certain things that I will present that I know are part of the Triratna canon as such, but they might not be what I personally exactly believe or have complete confidence in, or that I necessarily find useful. Yeah, I'm going to try and do that as best I can, but the difficulty is that my experience and who I am is so what would you say, intertwined with my practice. I've become who I am because of my practice, and my practice has formed around the character that I am to some degree, that I can't really easily separate them. From my point of view, that's really good, because that's integration. That has to happen. Actually, you can't have a generic practice. I don't think. It's saturated with your experience, with your life, with your personality. You can't separate them, and it would be awful if you did, really. but I'll I'll try and make that as clear as I can. The bottom line is that you don't have to practice like me, and you don't have to be like me to be a Triratna Buddhist. There are people in Triratna, politically left and right and middle. It's a worldwide movement, so there are obviously people from all sorts of different cultures and situations. There's the greatest variety of characters in the order than I've seen in actually any group of people. Yeah, I'm going to try and get other people involved to give you a broader understanding and experience as I can. Yeah. What you can do. Number one, be courageous in asking silly questions. Usually the questions that you think are silly, they're not silly, they're fundamental. They're the foundation that everything is built on. And asking a question and getting very clear on the foundation is of incredible importance. Silly questions are a damn sight better than clever questions. Yeah. So particularly those, it goes right back to questions of what do the words mean? Like grammatical, like what does that word particularly mean? And that's great. The course is not perfect in terms of expression. It's trying to appeal to a wide variety of people, and they're not all going to have the same vernacular and understanding of words. So what do the words mean? That's a great question. The next one is, if you understand the words, you might then be asking what the content means. Like, exactly, I get what they're saying in terms of the words, but why is this being said, and in what way does it apply? Yeah, that's another one. The next one might be, you know what the words mean, you know what the meaning is, but you might question whether it's true or useful. Like, in what way is this true? In what way is it useful? Can you give examples of this? Yeah. And then the last one is, you know what the words mean, you know what the content means, you think it's true and useful. The last one is like, how do I implement this? What do I actually do with it in my life? How might that play out? And how can I reflect on that? How can I bring that into part of my daily life and character? So yeah, ask questions. Next one is, email me if you want to get involved. I'd really encourage that. And then the last one is, help me find other order members who could contribute. If you know of any order members in your local centre, or please get them to contact me. Anyway, I hope this makes sense. I hope you can join me. I'll try and keep this as regular as I can. My life is a little varied, but I will try and do this as often as possible. And looking forward to it.